What motivated Claudia to join the National Mentorship Movement / VNA program in particular?
Well, it isn't that strange. I'm part of the Commensa organization as a registered coach and mentor. So the information came through Commensa that the mentorship movement were looking for mentors to help on the specific program. But before that, I've been mentoring with other not-for-profits and also through my own business, where I am a business turnaround coach and mentor, when we work with other organizations. So that was the long and the short of how I got to know about the National Mentorship Movement. It's important also for me to provide my skills as somebody who's been in the workforce for more than 25 years, that I give back in a pro bono or not-for-profit area as well. So I was very interested to get involved, and obviously with the VNA program, this was a new sort of venture into that landscape of organization.
True, and you really did well. You really did well on that VNA program. I remember when I was collecting the feedback. Your mentees. Did you have two mentees? You had one, right?
I had one mentee, but I was helping a few other mentees who had questions because my
Yeah.
background is in manufacturing. So I have a lot of experience of a wide field from manufacturing. I mean, I worked in manufacturing for many years. I started out as an engineer, so I know a lot of turnaround. I'm a problem solving specialist. So I have a lot of experience. I worked in logistics for more than 5 years. So I understand a lot of aspects of the complete value chain of an organization. And so I was helping a few of the other members in the candidates on the cohort with other questions that they had. But I only have one assigned mentee.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
also, sorry, Des. It was very interesting also to see the inner workings of the VNA waterfront program and where people were working and how things played out in that space, which is specifically geared to tourists, and how small and medium businesses are dealing with the fluctuations in that kind of a touristic business.
True, true. No, thank you for that. Our second question is, how has mentorship supported your personal, professional, or entrepreneurial journey?
So from that perspective, I didn't really have a lot of expectations of the support, but I have to say, as a coach, because the process between coaching and mentoring, although very subtle, is very distinct. So there is a different type of need when you are mentoring somebody to when you are coaching somebody. And that had kind of made me look at how I do things differently. How I question, the questions that you pose to somebody who you're mentoring is slightly different to when you are coaching somebody. And it gave me an opportunity to also work on listening with real care to what the underlying questions are. Because sometimes people are asking a direct question, but there's underlying nuances that you have to really dig for. And that means, mining those by asking follow-up questions. And oftentimes mentees want the answer, and there's no sense in asking questions. If they ask you if the sky is blue, the sky is blue, and they require that answer, so they require a straight answer. But oftentimes it is important to ask the nuanced question like, is there a possibility for the sky to be a different color, and what do you think influences the color of the sky? Just as a as a really unrelated example. But yes, it taught me to look at, let's say, my client, and in this respect, the mentee, from a different perspective, and how to meet them where they are at, especially as small business entrepreneurs, because that's also a different kind of mentee than, let's say, mentoring somebody in a work situation, which I have done in the past as a manager, um, as a senior engineer, mentoring junior people in the organization. And that type of mentoring is different than when you are mentoring somebody who is not necessarily working in an organization with you, and also in a different field to where you yourself have practiced. So it's taught me to listen with a little bit more in depth, and meeting the mentees where they are at, and understanding that there's nuances and there's oftentimes more depth to just the obvious questions that are being asked.
No, quite impressive. Thanks for that. So, can you at least share a specific lesson or a piece of advice from your mentees' perspective? Sorry, uh, that changed everything about you.
You know what? It's not a new lesson, but it kind of comes up so often. And we, as, let's say, experienced business people, we don't often think about it like that. But there is, when you do some reflection, and obviously as a coach and as a mentor, there has to be a lot of self-reflection that you're doing when you're taking somebody on a journey like this. And part of what I've discovered is that there is so much um, inside of the mentee, or inside the client, that is based in, let's say, confidence. They may lack confidence, even though they're running a successful business. They have more doubts about their own abilities than you see. So I see everybody that has potential. I mean, I went into my a mentoring journey with my mentee with great respect and great admiration, because it takes a lot of self-assurance to start a business. But then speaking to your mentee, speaking to your client, you realize that they sit with a lot of self-doubt, whether they're making the right decision, whether they have the right tools, whether they are doing things right. And we have to have empathy as mentors and coaches for that, that self-doubt that is lying there. And when you reflect on it, you realize that you often yourself have had those self-doubt in your own abilities. I suffer from it, and I know the new age term, which is imposter syndrome. It's something that everybody struggles with, because life is unpredictable. And it's important, again, that we meet the mentee where they are at. We have empathy, we approach the situation with compassion and understanding that oftentimes we need to just give them a little bit of reassurance, showing that we trust them and their process, and that they can trust themselves and their process. And even if there's things that you don't know, that you haven't learned, it doesn't really say anything explicit about your abilities, because nobody can know everything. Nobody can have the answer to every question. Not myself as a mentor or as a coach, not the president, not anybody, because life changes, and what is the right answer today might not be the right answer tomorrow. And it's also determined by the circumstances in which you operate. So for me, it was kind of like eye-opening to see again, the self-doubt that resides in us as people, and how often that little voice in the back of your head saying, "What were you thinking? How did you think you can make this work? You were just so and so. You don't even have that in this." So having the ability to see that, and actually just calm the I almost want to say the internal saboteur in your mind, and reassuring your mentee that their path is their path. They cannot measure themselves against somebody else, the timeline of somebody else, and somebody else's journey. They must walk their own path, and they must be kind and compassionate to themselves.
Quite impressive. Thanks a lot for that. So, what challenges has mentorship helped you to overcome?
Um, I have many challenges, as I'm sure a lot of coaches would tell you. We work at a part of being a coach and part of being a mentor is to use self-reflection to understand what is the things that um, that is a challenge for yourself, things that you have to work on. So for me, I've had to listen with a little bit more patience, understand that the person that I'm mentoring is not in at the same level, let's say, of experience that I have. When I'm speaking about certain terms that I might have been using for the last 10 years, it might be a completely new concept for this person. And just because they've been running a business for 5 years, it does not necessarily mean that they've come across these concepts, right? And like I said, I come from a manufacturing background. I have experience in logistics, and that has shaped my understanding, my business jargon, just the level of information that I that resides in my mind, and that is the challenge that I've had to overcome, is to realize that whoever I'm working with doesn't have that same input, doesn't have that same information. And it's it's obvious when you realize it, because when you go into a space that you are not familiar with, when I go into a space that I'm not familiar with, I'm happy to learn. I'm happy to say I don't know these things, and learn new concepts and learn new methods, learn new words, for instance, especially if you are speaking more than one language and English isn't your first language. Be that as it may, understanding that another person's um, knowledge base does not coincide with mine. So I have to take the time to explain concepts as if I would explain it to a teenager, for instance, or somebody who is, embarking on a university a course. So student, even though this is a person that is mature, they've worked in business and they've run their own business. And to, like I said before, meet them where they are at and have compassion and just have the ability to sit there and listen and understand where it is where you have to fill in more gaps that you may not have considered when you started the conversation.
Quite understandable. Thank you about it. Um, how has your relationship with your mentee influenced your confidence, growth, and opportunities?
I always think when you are working with somebody and you see their growth, because like I said, we all have this um, imposter that is hiding, the saboteur that tells you you are not good enough. What makes you think you can make a difference? So when I see how my mentee has grown and I see the level of questions that they ask, that is an affirmation for myself that I am contributing to another person's growth. I am making a difference. Now, that may seem selfish, what it's all about me, but it isn't. We as people, when we are out there and we are contributing, because it's very important for us to contribute in wider society, it's also important for us to have the affirmation that we are doing something worthwhile, because that inspires you to do more of that, right? If something is worthwhile, anybody would want to do more of something that is worthwhile. You wouldn't want to continue doing something that either breaks you down mentally or physically and doesn't help or breaks down society in general. So it's very affirming when you see the mentees grow, when you see the changes in their business, when there is a significant shift in how they operate, and you go, I've actually made a contribution there. And you reside with comfort in the fact that they did the work. Because as a mentor, you do no work, right? You don't have to exert any physicality into the work. You have to be a conduit. You have to co-create a path with the other person, a path to their goals, a path to their perceived or their imagined future. So it's very affirming when you see that path take shape, when you see the mentee take ownership for that path, and when you see them starting to walk that path and being excited about it and actually meeting their own goals that they've set and carrying on. And that is something that is very affirming for me as a mentor, to see that change and realize that I've had a contribution. I've made a difference.
You've made a change. That's quite beautiful. What does mentoring through National Mentorship Movement mean to you personally?
With the National Mentorship Movement, I thought that the scope and the program itself is very purposeful. I like the idea that it's very inclusive and it's focusing on not just what we bring to the broader society with supporting mentees, but also the learnings that is shared through the movement, through the program, through the organization. And for me, that is important. Like I've mentioned before, I'm a member of Commensa. I also serve as the deputy chair of the chapter in the Western Cape. And I've learned that it is so important for everybody to feel like they're part of the community, like they're learning from each other. Because we as mentors, we as coaches are not really worth our salt if we are not also improving, if we are not also learning, if we are not also changing and developing as we are encouraging our clients and our mentees and our coaches to improve, to build on top of the strengths that they have. So with your organization, National Mentorship Movement, I felt that was an imperative part that I really liked, the learnings that goes on and just the purposefulness of sharing this in this program in the broader community, and obviously with the V&A Waterfronts program specifically, how it's helped small businesses develop skills and brought, let's say, tools through mentors into those business owners, orbit where they might before have never had an opportunity to have access to a coach or a mentor before.
Thank you. Thank you so much. In what ways do you see yourself paying it forward in the future?
Well, I would like to continue working with the National Mentorship Movement. But I also, like I said before, I sign up for various other organizations who's not-for-profit organizations who do work with mentors, mentees in the broad community. Some through businesses. I'm also working with another organization that mentors youth. So children, or I want to say students, before they go into university, because that is also imperative to understand that there is a level of guidance, of support that is necessary before we basically send our children into the wider world, which would be your first college or university. So that's where I'm I'm looking into working, and that's where I've signed up, and I've got already 3 or 4 mentees in that same space. So yes, just doing the same thing and doing more of this kind of work. So I've shifted my focus in the last, I want to say, 5 years from just specifically doing coaching in organizations to also doing mentoring, and doing mentoring specifically for not-for-profit organizations. So basically giving back and making my skills and my knowledge accessible to people who won't necessarily have the financial means to access the kind of skill and knowledge that I have accumulated over many years.
Oh, thank you so much, Claudia. That's the end of our
Conversation.
questions. Yeah.
And it's really lovely to work with people like yourself. I mean, to me, this is an indication of the growth of our country.
mm,
That we are an eclectic cultural mix of what we do in on the landscape of our country at the moment, and it's important that we see the changes that we are making.
and it is through people like you that we keep this movement going. We really appreciate it a lot.
Yes, and I like I say, I like to work with organizations who do not-for-profit work, um,
Mm,
because there is, I mean, just the historical evidence in our country. There is a lot of um, people, a lot of society that
mm,
has no
mm,
access to tools, but also has no access to people. We need to transfer the knowledge. We need to carry on what we've learned. And I think that's probably one of the biggest gaps that we're currently facing in our own country, is that gap between the ones who have knowledge and the ones who's trying to gain knowledge, gain experience.
true.
And it's important that we close that gap in a meaningful, but also structured way, which is why I like and I practice mentoring specifically as well, because there's structure to it, and there's also a way of transferring knowledge, while you know while being compassionate and
Mm.
empathetic to the plight of people who have not had these things, have not had these opportunities before.
It's always nice talking to people like you. You just give us more and more reasons why you should keep on doing whatever that we're doing. Really appreciate
Please
it.
keep
From me
doing what you're
personally,
doing.
from me personally, yeah.
Please keep doing what you're doing. There is a lot of need in our country, and we still have a long path to walk. So keep
Thank,
doing what you're doing. This is
thank,
what builds our country strong.
thank you so much, Claudia. Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for inviting me. And it was nice to see you again, Des. Nice to meet you, Gracious and Alpha. Um, I'll hope to see you in the very near future. Join in more conversation.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Okay, then. Bye bye, guys. Have a good afternoon. Ciao.